Hello, Shannon.
Hey, Eric.
Yeah, more people are coming, so I'll give it a few minutes.
Hi.
Is this the first time you've been to a Solidarity Network meeting?
Yep. And it was my first. No, it's my first time. Joining the other meeting as well. So
Okay.
yeah, it's a little. It's a little nerve wracking. My nerves have kind of cooled down a little bit from like the last meeting, but I'm still a little nervous about this one.
This one should be interesting because basically we were meeting every week to do this conference with the goal of continuing going forward.
Mhm.
And we finally had the conference. We had one meeting after the conference, and then it kind of dried up except for a few of us still working. We've had, I think, two meetings since then. So we're trying to get back to regular weekly meetings at this point and see where we're going to go going forward.
Yeah.
A few groups that pulled out for a variety of reasons, and we have a list of new groups to invite, but we need to get everything together. So
Right. I understand. God, it can be so. My friends and I started like a nonprofit of our own to try and get involved, like specifically to help those who like to help when it comes to like on the medical side of things to help those who may not have access to it or to like, and we tried to partner up with like other organizations, do fundraising, all that. But recently we were like kind of it was like the same sort of situation as you, like where we had like meetings like with our like organization, like with members, and then at some point it just kind of like, I don't know, it's kind of you know like stopped. The meetings sort of died down, and like our organization's been kind of inactive. So like we actually recently had like a sort of meeting with like our Telegram chat, um, discussing like our plans for the future. So it can be like really rough, and I can't even imagine like you're working with like various other groups, not hearing from them, and like hearing that some of them have like resigned, and now you're getting new groups. It's like, you know,
yeah, it can definitely be nerve wracking,
yeah,
but we're going to push forward anyway. That's sort of what we're trying to do, is make sure that whatever happens with it, it still goes forward.
yeah,
So,
right, absolutely, I agree.
because I've been in a lot of things like that too, that were like umbrella groups and networks, and they just, everybody gets momentum and then it falls apart.
Right,
So we're trying to put the momentum back in.
yeah.
Who else came in? Felix, Yoshi, Leah, welcome back, everyone. So I'll give it like 2 more minutes, see if anybody else comes on.
I don't know, all of this talk about like something coming together, coalition falling apart. I would argue that some of these coalitions are they weren't they didn't have any bond that was anything substantial. I mean, I think like things like democratic coalitions or progressive coalition, a lot of stuff is like that. Sometimes they just show up every few years.
Yep.
I feel like
Awesome.
the Women's March is a prime example of it. It's kind of like in the mode of the civil rights groups that were eventually supported by foundations, but then foundations always kept a very short leash on what the Black uprising could
Exactly.
actually achieve,
Right, and it sucks because the whole point is to like try and you know like that's what's so frustrating about like some of these things, like um like when I was it's funny, like during COVID, like I really kind of radicalized in a way. Like before the pandemic, I would have thought that like those women's marches were like, wow, so as like very impactful, but then you learn about it and you realize they're really not as impactful as you think they are, because really those sort of like protests that are like that, where they're kind of being like supported by the government, like the reason why like the government is not freaking out about them is because they know it's not going to cause much uproar. They know it's not going to cause much change, because it's, again, like they're like you said, it's keeping like the government's like keeping the leash very short on what you can do. So that's why they're not like really intimidated by it. And even then, like, I don't know, sometimes like, and even then, like, you have more peaceful protests that get like brutalized by the police, and it's just like, I don't know where I'm going with this, but yeah, I was just going to say that I agree with you on that, and it sucks.
Yeah, I think the short leash is how they keep power, and the brutality is how they show it.
Absolutely. Oh, you're right about that. It's kind of like the, hey, don't get too out of line. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Yeah. God, it's so messed up. It really is. Like,
So
and but
sorry,
then
oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
no, I was just gonna say, like, it sucks when people say, like when people are still try to promote that, and they still are under the impression that it'll work, and you just know that it won't. And it sucks when like we know that there's like more things we can do, like there's more different actions that we can take, but it's not as like well known yet,
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, a couple of months ago, a friend of mine, actually, it was right after I guess it was actually right after they repealed Roe v. Wade. A friend of mine and I, we staged a rally outside City Hall in Philadelphia, where she lives and a lot of my friends live. And we posted about it actually in a few different places, including on Reddit, where it got a lot of attention. And like not half, but a lot of the comments were like, I hope all of you are going to vote. And I'm like, yes.
God, my parents still go on about that. They still will tell, like my mom made me register to like, be able to vote. And my mom, like whenever I try to bring up any sort of like, issues with our government, my mom will be like, you say this, but then you don't vote. And it's like, Mom, the voting does nothing. And like my siblings will call her out. My brother, I have like two older brothers and like an older sister, and they'll like call her out, and they'll be like they're like both the Democrats and the Republicans are like, they're like, two sides of the same coin, like they're they're like essentially the same, they're
Right.
It's just that one is like the softer, like the more like trying to seem as like nicer, like the live, like like Democrats, like they're trying to seem like they're like, no, we're like the better version, like we're like the less terrible version of Republicans. It's just like, ugh.
Yeah, the way I've sometimes said it is that Republicans have embraced fascism. They're all about like, all right, democracy is over, let's bring in fascism. Democrats would prefer to keep up appearances.
Yes, they're more about like keeping up that appearance of being progressive while not actually being progressive, because that would like tumble the boat too much. That would like rock the boat too much in a way.
Well,
and they don't want to do that there because they're like cowardly. You see like how the Republican government kind of like, not government, but like the Republicans kind of like pushed them around in a way, like that's like with like the overturning of Roe v. Wade. It's so frustrating because they had years to protect Roe v. Wade, and they did nothing because that's what they were holding voters on. They kept saying, oh, we'll protect Roe v. Wade. That was like their big thing. That's why they didn't really protect it. And now us average citizens are gonna be the ones being most affected by it.
Well, it's actually your fault. If you had sent Nancy Pelosi $25 more,
exactly.
Listen,
darn.
we could definitely all complain about the Democratic Party all night, I'm sure.
Okay,
get started?
It's 8:40.
Yeah.
Let everybody vent there. But yeah, literally it could go on like for the next 6 weeks nonstop about the politics. Okay, so for those of you, I didn't do an agenda for tonight because the one thing we really need to do is figure out what we're going to do going forward. There was a lot of talk about making a federation and a confederation. And what we kind of decided with the people who've been remaining is just to keep it as Solidarity Network. It was originally New Jersey Solidarity Network, but because that name was taken in like the website and the Gmail, it's Solidarity Network NJ, which is the same thing, just the NJ is at the end. So for anyone new or who doesn't know, we have a website, www.solidaritynetworknj.com that Mia created. And there's also a Rocket chat. Oh, there's Mia. Look at that. I just mentioned you. So we're just getting started. We just had some venting going on and talking and discussing things. So what we're looking at is what we want to do going forward. We have Mia pulled up we had a list of groups that we contacted initially, or that we were all supposed to contact initially. There have been more groups added to that with a whole bunch of information about the groups, whatever contact information that we could find for them. And we plan to send out an invite basically to all of those groups. Would you like to join the Solidarity Network? But before we do that, some of them have already been contacted possibly, but before we really go and push with that, we want to make sure we know what we are, what we're doing, and what our plan is going forward. The basic idea is we are not a group like other groups. We are a group to connect groups. So no matter where you are, you can just reach out to NJ Solidarity Network and we can give you the groups or give you information about groups in your area or a group for what you're looking for. It's more like an umbrella network to connect groups together, to be the glue between the groups. So does anyone who's been here before have any thoughts on moving forward? I guess since there's 7 of us, we should probably use Stack, just type Stack in the chat to speak your piece. I could talk all night.
Mark, if I may, since we have somebody here who's actually never been here before, would we maybe like to quickly introduce ourselves?
Oh yeah, we could do an introduction, yeah. Sorry, it's been a very long day. I guess Aaron just volunteered to start with introductions. So
okay. My name is Aaron, my pronouns are he, him, and I'm with Central Jersey DSA. Mark, do you want to go next since you volunteered me?
Sure. I'm Mark, he, him, Central Jersey DSA, NJPPC, DWG, National DSA, a whole bunch of other groups, a lot of environmental stuff. I'm kind of everywhere. And I will popcorn it over to Felix.
Felix, Central Jersey DSA, not my first name. I'll popcorn over to Mia.
Oh, sorry. Did you say Leah or Mia?
Yes.
Oh yeah. I think I said Mia. I'm not sure.
It all works. We'll eventually get to everyone, so go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Wait, you can?
Yes.
Okay, sorry. My computer's been acting up. Hi, my name is Mia. My pronouns are she, her. Member of Union County Mutual Aid. And yeah, that's it. Let's go with Leah next.
Hi, I'm Leah. I use they and she pronouns. I'm from the Lambertville area, and I work with Lambertville Affordable Housing Coalition. And I'll pass it to Yoshi.
Hi, I'm Yoshi, pronounce he, him, they, Central Jersey DSA. Are you the last person to go, Felix?
Shannon.
Yeah. Should I go or? Okay.
Yeah, finish 31.
My name's Shannon. She, her. I use she, her pronouns, and I just recently I recently filled out this form for the Central New Jersey DSA Mutual Aid Committee, and I'm currently trying to join the Central New Jersey DSA as well.
That was everyone. Okay, so yeah. Welcome. Welcome to Shannon. Great to have you from Aaron.
Who is taking notes tonight?
I think you just self-tuned yourself. I don't have my computer open, so I can't take notes.
It's okay. It's recorded anyway, so we can always rewatch it.
Does anyone want to take notes?
Okay, I can take notes. I'm bad at it, but I'll do it anyway.
Okay, thank you, Aaron.
Do we have a Google Doc already?
No, not for tonight.
Okay, I'll just start one.
Start one, and then in the future, we'll go off of.
Okay.
We'll make an agenda off of this. Leah can only stay till 9ish. So Leah, since you can only stay till 9ish, is there anything you would like to bring up? Any pros, cons, things we're going forward, things that didn't work, things we want to do? Not about the conference, just about the network itself. We're probably, for anyone who doesn't, for Shannon especially, we had the conference May 14th. We're tentatively planning another conference for next year, which we're not going to start even talking about planning yet, but we figure we'll do another one in a year. There was talk about possibly doing a social event sometime in the summer. I suggested fall, and being now that we're in August, if we do get to that, it would likely be the fall. And we'll see what happens with that based on what happens tonight. So Leah, since you're only here for 13 minutes, do you want to say anything?
Sure, yeah. I think so far I've been, agreeing with everything that you've been saying. I was actually just about to suggest that we move a social event to like mid-fall or something, while the weather is still like fine for being outside. And like there's no reason to like rush into that. But yeah, I think the best way to be, sorry, I don't know if you can hear that there's like dirt bikes outside. I think the best way to keep building momentum would be like trying to connect with orgs on like a personal basis. Like I see the value in like sending out emails and stuff and like inviting orgs, but like orgs are usually like very overwhelmed with their own work and they're not going to be super responsive. So maybe like revisiting that list of orgs that we had back in the beginning and like kind of breaking it down so that people reach out to maybe like 3 to 5 that they might already have contacts at and just kind of start building those personal connections. Because yeah, I think that'll be in the long term the most effective, and it's also kind of an easier lift organizationally. Yeah, that's pretty much my thoughts.
I agree with doing mid-fall. Mia said haunted corn maze. There's one, I think it's in Lambertville, that I've been to. That's amazing. Like you go in there and you're in there for like up to hours. Like it's really cool. So that would be an interesting concept. So first off, let's vote on trying to have a social event, because last time we had trouble with voting. Let's just do it as we go along. So the motion to have a social event in mid-fall. Does anyone second?
Second.
Motion seconded. All in favor, say aye or type aye in the chat. All opposed, say nay or no, type in the chat. Yay, nay, or abstain. I don't remember the name of it. I'll find out though. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. We don't have an official quorum set, so I'd say more than half. We'll talk about how it looks like later. For right now, let's just get the idea down so we know. This is kind of like a figuring out where we're going meeting, since we haven't really met consistently in a while. And we could talk about each thing as they come up. Okay, so motion is passed to have a social event mid-fall. One suggestion was a corn maze, and caution about how it looks like was brought up, which I think we should discuss maybe later today, but if not, then soon. Other thing Leah brought up was the list. Mia took the list and added a whole bunch of information, and there's 2 versions of it. It's the same list, although I got to figure out how to make one update the other one, which I'm going to look into, because there were 2 groups added to one. But it's a list of orgs and then like a list of who wants to contact them. So we do have that, a first version of that ready to go. Mia, were all the orgs from the original list on there? I didn't cross check.
When I was doing all the research, some of the groups were no longer like in operation. So any group that was not in operation or there was no online footprint for them, they were removed from the list. There's still a few groups on there that don't really have much information, but they have some. They're really hard to trace and track down just because a lot of groups don't have an online presence. But it is updated. And yeah, more groups that are being put on the tracker have to be added to the actual list of groups. I hope that answered your question.
Yeah. So try to take a look at that list and get it out to everybody. Because the one version of the list is so that we know who is going to contact which group. And I like Leah's suggestion. If you already know a group, I mean, obviously Central Jersey DSA, half the people on this call can contact them, but some groups only one person might know, or one person might have a bigger in. So that is a good idea. And there are some names on the list. I put my name on the list for groups that I know and have personal connection with. So we'll get that out to everybody soon. With that, and it'll be, and one version of the list will essentially be, it's exactly the same list, but one will be like ready to send out to the public. Mia? Was there somebody before you?
Aaron is before me.
Aaron, yeah.
Thanks. Yeah, I was going to say, I'm definitely in favor of the idea of starting to reach out to organizations. I think it's important that we actually have something to kind of say to them. I mean, on the one hand, like,
Yes.
we would want to build up the relationships. But Mark, I think you brought up the point that, if we're just saying like, hey, come to these like planning meetings, but we don't actually have the thing that we're planning. Yeah, Leah, I think that's a good point that, we can start to basically say, hey, let's invite them to the social event. We might, before we do that, want to get a better sense of what the social event is, because I mean, just in terms of like a question about it, is there a theme to it? Is there some purpose for the social event other than just like getting to know each other? I think these are questions that we're going to have to answer and answer pretty quickly. So if we can sort of set, like, we have a rough timeline in terms of when, if we can get a rough sense of maybe where and like what kind of event, I think that would really help us in having these conversations.
So that'll be one of our priorities, is to figure those details out, which we could try to, if we don't get to it tonight, talk about for the next meeting, like get some ideas, get some information. For if we send out emails before then, we could just say we're planning a mid-fall social event. Details to be determined, just to let them know, hey, sometime in the fall we're going to have something. And then, you can always send a follow-up email to any orgs that like reach out back. Mia, you're on Stack.
Yeah. So if you are going to be sending out emails to these groups, please use your Solidarity email account through Google. So we can kind of have some uniform to how we communicate with groups. If you don't have an account or haven't logged in, I could reset your password for you. just message me on Rocket Chat, and I'll give you all the logins for that. And something else, me and Mark have talked about this a lot, about forming an official nonprofit to be able to get resources and funding and distribute that amongst other groups, and actually start building something more structured, because right now we don't even have like a Cash App or a Venmo. And I think the misconception that a lot of people have is people think we are a mutual aid group when we are not. We do not do any mutual aid. We just facilitate the groups that do mutual aid. So when you're messaging people and reaching out, please make sure they understand that we have no funding. We do not provide assistance. We just refer people to the groups that are in their areas. So we can discuss this at another meeting, but I do want to propose that we do form an official nonprofit just so that we can get the funding and grants, and then distribute that money to other groups that are doing work in their communities, as well as have some protection for actually operating for what we're doing, and to give us more legitimacy. Another thing we're going to have to discuss is the points of unity. A lot of people, and a lot of the feedback from people, they do not like the points of unity. And I really think that's what's scaring people off, is the extreme radical nature of the points of unity.
Mia, can you hold off on that for 1 second? Because we have to cover that for sure. Because Leah has to leave in 3 minutes and she just went on stack.
Okay. Go ahead, Leah.
Oh, I appreciate that. It also has to do with your first point. So going back to the idea of forming a nonprofit, I don't think that in itself is like a bad idea. I just think that kind of like the original intention of the network is like for it to not be as much of like its own thing as much as like a platform for connecting other groups. And you know, who knows where we'll be down the road, but I don't feel like we have like the amount of like active members right now to create and run like a nonprofit structure. But that being said, something that I'd be open to exploring would be getting a fiscal sponsorship, which is when you enter into an agreement with an existing nonprofit so that they will pretty much like house your legal documents. So if you want to get donations and they, you know, when you give a donation to a nonprofit, it's tax deductible. So if we had a fiscal sponsorship, people could donate to us and it would be tax deductible because of our sponsorship. So anyway, I don't know a whole lot about these things. It's something I'm learning about in my own group, but it's definitely something to explore because it wouldn't be as labor intensive to set up. But yeah, those are my thoughts. I do have to run, but thank you guys so much for continuing on with this.
Great to see you, Leah. Yeah, as far as some of these structures go,
hold on. Wait, Aaron.
I'm sorry.
You got to stack yourself because Mia was still talking. I cut Mia off to let Leah talk because she was leaving. I just want to say one thing about the fiscal sponsorship versus nonprofit. Often nonprofits start with the fiscal sponsorship until they get themselves set up enough to form their own nonprofit. So that is a common step along the way if you're going to form a nonprofit. But it's definitely a possibility, and I may even have options for that, which we'll discuss in the future. Okay, Mia, did you want to continue what you were saying? Because oh wait, Aaron, was yours related to what they were just talking about before we go into the points of unity? Because that's going to probably
mine is just to say that I don't know if it's necessary. I mean, these are fairly simple structures, I think, but I do have a good resource on some, you know, legal advice as far as these things go, if necessary. So my sister, she owes me.
Go, Aaron, sister. Okay, so that's definitely on the table. Well, we have to discuss it more before we really come up with a plan, and we need a whole bunch of paperwork and documentation. So that's not like an immediate by next week thing. Okay. Mia brought up the points of unity. Do you want to continue what you were saying, Mia?
Sure. So we have to rework them. And this needs to be a focus for us, a very serious focus. Because there is so much tension I felt like during planning for the conference because of these points of unities. So we need to schedule a meeting just for a discussion about that. And we need to take the survey responses that we got from the conference about how people felt about them very seriously. Sorry, what was the step on the road?
Oh, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I'm sorry, Mia.
No, that's
Getting
okay.
fiscal sponsor, getting a fiscal sponsor. They're a nonprofit that holds your paperwork so you can do your thing, but it's under them. But you can get money donated to you like as a nonprofit. We'll talk more about that later. Go ahead, Mia.
So yeah. So I think next meeting we should definitely focus just on the points of unity. And we really need to start planning on how to onboard people. I mean, if we're going to reach out to people, we really don't have a system yet to kind of facilitate them coming into our group. I feel like our group has a severe identity crisis, kind of like when I was denying I was trans. So we need to work on that.
Sounds like you have the most experience.
Thanks. So we really need to focus on that because I've been to multiple groups meetings, just observing them. And I recently left a group, actually today, just because of I'm literally witnessing them being so chaotic in how they're handling things with no system or structure in place. And I don't want to wind up like that because I feel like it's going to tarnish keeping people as active members. So yeah, let's work on that. Also, if anyone is not onboarded to any of the tools we use, please schedule a meeting with me. To do that, I'm available after 6 o'clock most days, and I can meet with anyone to do that. Please start utilizing Rocket Chat to communicate. And please schedule a meeting with me to learn how to manage our website. In the event I'm not able to, we need other people to be able to have access to it and make changes. And we also need to move our cloud computing away from my personal account, just for the reason that I also host cloud computing resources for other groups, and it just makes billing extremely difficult. We just got another bill for $32. I have to go through it and see what bill is actually for us and what's for other groups. But I can pay that. I'm very comfortable paying the cloud computing. I know I promised that in the beginning, so I'll continue to pay it. But yeah, that's all I have to say.
Mia, can you put your email address in the chat for anyone who's been here or Shannon who's new? So there's the website and the Rocket Chat. The Rocket Chat was set up with several different channels so that everyone could use it. So anyone who doesn't have access to the Rocket Chat or the website or the we'd have individual email accounts through the website, which would be like Mark at Solidarity Network or solidaritynetworknj.com, so that when we send out emails, they can be professional, through the group, not through your own personal email. So contact me to do that. And Aaron, were you on stack?
Yes, I was just going to say, going back to the points of unity thing, personally, I think we should scrap them for now and kind of redo that entirely. maybe when we actually have more groups, frankly, because I think one of the problems is that if we're making points of unity when we don't really have like any of these organizations as part of that process, we're not really going to get buy-in on them. Now, I realize the difficulty with that is that the question then becomes, who do we actually kind of invite into the network? At the same time, we have a list, you know, presumably everybody in that list we'd like to be a part of the network. And I think therefore part of creating those points of unity. So long story short, I think we've been tripping over them for a while now. I'd say they served us as far as the conference went. I think it's time to let them go and, you know, redo them. Let them be our articles of confederation, sorry.
Yoshi?
I'm not in favor of just scrapping the points of unity just because it's like, oh, people have less feedback and it seems like it's albatross, so we get rid of it. Like, if we run into a similar situation in the future, like, what are we gonna do? We're just gonna say, let's just scrap it. Like, there needs to be some kind of process. If we want to scrap it, then like, what's our process? And also, like, I'd also like to understand like what are people's like reservations about the points of unity. I like to like take those in. And okay, and also regarding the Rocket Chat and the website and stuff like that, I'll be the first to admit, maybe like I'm not the first person to say this, but that I can create this stuff, but I need reminders on like how to like access this, because my workplace as it is, and it's not even counting my personal logins, right? My personal logins, I have like probably 3 emails, and then my workplace has like 4 different portals. It's such a nuisance. Even like the billing has another portal. So actually, let's say 5. So I think some of the challenge of any platform to get everyone on is like, people are just like, not another app. I believe that sentiment was expressed at the conference itself as well. People are like, no, please, not.
With the app thing, there's 2 things I'd like to say real quick, and then we'll move the stack along. In a lot of groups, we have whatever platform we have as a chat, people just don't use it in general. So it might be a lot of the same people that say, oh no, not another app, are the same people that aren't using the apps they already have. Because I have Discord, Signal, Slack, Band, and now Rocket Chat. I use all of them, but some people don't use any of them. So there's mixed feelings on that.
I'm telling you right now, I'm not using Rocket Chat because like I can't keep straight 8 things and now another 9th thing. So it's probably needs to be like part of the emails that go out regularly or something. You know, like on the bottom of emails, they have like little icons of Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. It needs to be that kind of thing.
Okay. I don't know how to do all that right now, but all right. Mia.
I just, how do I say this? These tools that are set up for us is to make sure that we are safe online and secure. And I have stressed this over and over and over again, multiple times, that we are using an email thread with people that aren't even part of our group. And people have literally asked to be removed from the thread in the past, and they haven't been removed. The reason why these apps are set up this way is to keep security in mind, to make sure that we are protected, we're safe, and we're communicating in a way that can be beneficial to everyone. And I totally understand you don't want another app on your phone, but you can easily just log in from the web browser and access these things. And in a few weeks, once I have more time, if you actually use your Solidarity email, that's going to be the main point where you only have to remember one password and username, and it's going to log you into all of the apps that we use. So yeah, and about scrapping the points of unity, I totally understand where you're coming from, but if we're being realistic, the groups that we want involved had no say in the points of unity. So why are we going to force them into an agreement with us when we should be hearing them? So the whole point of this is to start fresh and find out who we are, because we primarily was set up as a group just to plan a conference. And most of those people are no longer with us. So we need to actually do the work and build the relationships and have people give their opinion on how they want this to be run. Because it's not fair that we just say, okay, you have to agree to these to be part of us. That's the reason why people don't want to be a part of our network, is because they have no say. I think Shannon is next.
Yeah. Thank you, Mia. Yeah, I'm very new to all of to a lot of these sort of issues. But what I'm gathering so far, at least, like I just checked out the Solidarity Network website right now, and I guess when it comes, like I'll start like with the points of unity, and I don't know, like I'm kind of on the fence a little, like I understand entirely like why, you know, we should like, I understand the parts where we, like, because what I'm saying is like I understand the reasons as to why, scrapping it and like restarting it could be a good idea. Like gives us a chance to sort of get us a start, like a new start, and it can give us a chance to connect with people and like connect with these organizations and build like a relationship in that way. But I guess I don't know if this would be like I guess it's one concern that I have about it. Like we were having, like I know we like plan on having a meeting about just the points of unity. And so the question comes, what happens if we come across like what if like one of the organizations on our website, like not on our website, but like one of the organizations on our list, we like reach out to them, we try to talk to them about like the points of unity, or we try to connect to them in that sort of way, and we find that some of the points are not like gelling with them, like, or like some of their beliefs on them are not gelling, and they're not like going together. What would be like the best course of action in that regard? Like what would we do? Would we try to like negotiate? Would we like I know we were again, like I know we're already planning on like maybe doing something to the points of unity themselves, but if even after that they still have some like issues with it, like would we try to negotiate? Would we try to do something else? I guess that's like my only concern, I guess, or like my only question.
We did have problems where groups that were heavily involved in the, or not heavily involved, but involved in the planning, and some of the groups that were even going to do presentations at the conference pulled out because of things in the points of unity. As of now, we don't have a plan for what happens when we encounter that. Like right now, as written, or from the old days, you either agree to the points of unity or you're not part of the network, which is part of the problem. Because groups that fit everything we want to do and are doing amazing work might not agree with one of the points of unity, or might be under a category that's been excluded. And the idea is not to exclude any groups unless there's a reason to. Like I think Yoshi brought up last time, like if the Proud Boys wanted to join, no, you're an obvious racist group, you're automatically out. Or if we let a group in and we find out that they're a racist group or intolerant group or something like that, we can always boot people. But we want to be as welcoming as possible, but also as protected as possible. And that's kind of Part of the issue is how we're handling that. And that's what we're kind of discussing is where to figure that out. Real quick before I get to the next two stacks, the things for Shannon, because you weren't here, the things in the points of unity that there was the biggest problems with are no business owners, because some of the groups pulled out because of that. Also, the no landlords and anti-capitalist. Some of the groups don't consider themselves anti-capitalist, even though they kind of act like socialists by being a mutual aid group in a way. They're not considering themselves anti-capitalist. So those are the three biggest things, because what in the case of like I technically am a business owner. I have a tutoring business, so I can't come to the conference. But by the time I found that out, I had already booked the venue and everything. So we don't want corporate to come in. We don't want corporations. We don't want people looking for money or looking to shut us down.
Yeah.
But we don't want to exclude mutual aid groups just because they might,
be intimidated by that. Yeah, I understand.
So
it's
we lost. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like kind of like trying to like walk that tightrope, I guess, is what's kind of tricky, because you don't want to like go to one side where you're having these corporations come in and soil like what our goal is, but at the same time you don't want to like scare away organizations that are doing mutual aid and are doing good things. So just trying to balance that out. Yeah.
Exactly. And that's what we really have to do is get that balance, is figure that out. One suggestion was to scrap them. One suggestion was to redo them. Well, before we end the call, we'll figure out how we're going to go about the next steps. Let me get to the stacks here. Hold on a second. Mia?
So the great thing about this group is it's everyone kind of has a say in everything. And we have a platform called Lumio that we can use to vote on things. People also in the group can propose their own things for the group. So I feel that if in the future, if people have an issue with the points of unity, they can just join our Lumio and propose the change that they want to see. And if it works out and it passes, then we make the change. But if 90% of people say they don't want that, and only 10% of people do want that, it makes more sense to do the 90% of people, because that's the common goal. And yeah, that's all I have to say about that.
Before I get to Yoshi Stack, about the voting, that was another problem, and I'm saying this mostly because Shannon's new. Whether to vote by group or by individual. We were voting during meetings as individuals in the past. Some decisions need to be made instantly. Some you can take the week and use like a site like Lumio, which I haven't used yet, but to do voting and things like that. So that was one of the problems. Was we were heavily Central Jersey DSA oriented, and the original Solidarity Network chats, and voting was done by individuals. Some people thought it should be done by groups. So that's another decision on how we need to go forward. Do we have like but the Lumio, could be done by group or by individual. For me, I think individual is better, but we can talk about that. Yoshi?
I feel like we're dealing with a lot of hypotheticals here. I understand people's reservation with points of unity, and I did not say that we're to hold on to the points of unity. What I'm saying is, what are people's reservation about points of unity, and what is our process to do it over? Sure, we can say that it was formed to do the Solidarity Network in NJ conference, and we totally get that, and I will be the first to admit that it did not seem completely fair that the Central Jersey DSA mutual aid members made up the vast majority of like the planning groups. But like some of these things, like for example, things like the anti-capitalist is, I feel like it's a very basic tenet of like mutual aid, because if you don't have that, like what do you have? If you say that like, oh, the majority of people are for this, like you are going to find that we will be in a situation because of what people socialize to accept and unable to imagine the possibilities outside of it. They like, you will not think that you'll get the outcome you want. And also what is to bring in more people to plan the points of unity.
What was the last thing you said, Yoshi?
What is the plan to bring in more people to plan the points of unity?
Can I answer that question?
Sure.
I think we need the people first, and that's something we've been struggling with. And I'll just reiterate the reason why the points of unity need to be reworked or scrapped is because people didn't have a say in them to begin with. It was forced upon people at the conference that they were agreeing to that, and it was literally in the registration form that if you come to this conference, you agree to our points of unity. And that's why groups pulled out, among other reasons that have been discussed. But I don't even know if this is like, I literally work for a bank. I'm working for capitalism itself. In reality, I shouldn't be a part of this group. So, and despite me doing a lot of mutual aid work, the points of unity would bar me from participating. So that's something that should really be considered. And about voting, we should keep it as individuals. And the reason behind that is if groups want more decisions to be made by them, then it's kind of their responsibility to recruit their people and have them show up and support their group and how their voice is heard. That's just how the voting has always worked. And I think it should stay that way. I know in the beginning, when we were planning the conference, a lot of people had issues with DSA being the primary force behind the conference. But what people didn't realize is if they get their groups involved, they'll have more power in voting. And I think the whole point of mutual aid is solidarity. So if that's the issue, groups should be responsible for getting more of their people involved.
That makes sense. All right, since it's approaching 9:30, we could stay. The meetings are generally 8:30 to 9:30, but we've had them way longer than 9:30. So, just to recap the things that we discussed tonight is a fall social event, details to be determined, the points of unity, changing or scrapping them, and getting more groups to get involved in the creation of any future versions of the points of unity, reaching out to groups, and voting. What did I miss anything there of the main things that we need to figure out going forward?
Fiscal sponsor or nonprofit status.
That I think we could wait on for a week or two. I don't think that one is as critical in the short term. But definitely something we should start working on. But before we get either one, we need to have paperwork in writing to get somebody on board. So I think all these other things need to be figured out before we can take the steps to get a fiscal sponsorship or a nonprofit. Because a fiscal sponsor, even if we go that way, they're gonna say, okay, well, what are you doing? What is your, so we need to kind of figure out these details like quickly. I think the points of unity and what our basic structure is, I think, are the most important things to figure out, like essentially immediately. And voting is part of that.
I think I just see us making the same mistake again. Just like with the conference, we set it up one way and then changed how we were going to run it. And that's why people pulled out. I feel like if we figure out our structure first, then we can get the people that actually want to be on board with that on board. But if we start out and then say, hey, we're going to form a structure to our group, people are probably going to be upset with that, kind of like how it happened with the conference. And the best way to explain that was vaccinations.
To catch Shannon up on that, it was a week and a half before the conference. It was a Thursday night. The conference was on the following, not that Saturday, but the following Saturday. And it came up about having people be vaccinated, masked and vaccinated at the conference. Masked wasn't so much of a problem because there were immunocompromised people planning on coming. We had a very long meeting deciding whether or not vaccinations would be required. The problem was not that we wanted to require or not require them. The problem was that we had already sent out invites and people had already planned their groups, and some of the people who were presenting were unvaccinated. So we had a lot of trouble with that. Looking down to see. 2.5 hours was an exhausting meeting. It was an incredibly exhausting meeting. And Yoshi says, I don't see us making decision without structure. So, Aaron?
So here's what I propose. Can we basically pick one of these issues? And that will be our agenda for next week. Just one thing that we can figure out. And by the end of that meeting, we'll be a little bit closer to understanding, how this all works. Can we commit to that?
I would say we pick like an A and a B. That way, if we get through one, we're already starting the second one. Because
You're
we
an
might
optimist.
not usually, no. As I think I told Yoshi, I told him I never expect to win or I never expect it to succeed. So it's always a joy. But like everyone should look over all of these things. Well, I'll get to that in a second. Yoshi, I said, what are the choices? Let me just go through, since there's only 5 of us left. Aaron, you brought up the idea. What?
This is what I recommended. It's a little bit counterintuitive, so I will not be offended if anybody disagrees. The unifying thing that kind of held us all together before was planning the conference. Despite any disagreements we had, that sort of kept us going. I'm actually going to recommend that we start getting some things roughed in for our next event. And we can kind of figure out some of the structure, going into that. But what structure do we really need for a social event other than the ability to kind of invite people, give them a sense of what we are? But I agree with Mia, we need the people first. And there are 2 ways of looking at this decision making. It's decisions first or people first. And I think we need some people first. If we have an event starting to plan, then we can go to some of the organizations and say, hey, we are, we're starting to plan this. We would like you to join us. we're going to be figuring out maybe some amendments to our points of unity. We are going to be figuring out a little bit more of our structure. We want you to be part of that conversation. But I think that the first thing we need to do is have something that, something to reach towards, that says to these organizations, this is why you should be a part of it. For now, it's just getting to the next thing. A social event in, say, earlier mid-October.
Would anyone else like to weigh in on what we should do what we should basically, what should be our first step, or what we should focus on for the next meeting? So the suggestion here is to get people on board first. Initially, I didn't agree with that, but I could see a way of doing that based on some of what Aaron just said. But let's try to finalize what we want to do between now and next week, before we end the call. Does anybody else have any thoughts on what's the most important thing to do, or where we should start before next week? Anyone? Good. Well, we have the Lumio to vote. Should we put this out to vote? Mia brought up a point about the email thread that we have been using, having a lot of people, and no one's replying to it. We're just going on the same chain. So I'm going to send out an email to everyone who's on this call at some point, hopefully within the next 24 hours, probably not tonight, possibly, but to everyone who's on this call, just to sort of follow up and make sure everyone has the agenda and the notes, and try to put it all together, everything that we have, so everyone has a chance to look at us.
Can somebody can we decide who's going to put together the agenda for next week?
Well, that's, I think, what we're deciding right now is
Okay.
what we want to look at before next week. So we have a chance to so everything was kind of brought up this week, like a lot of things, and we need to look through all of those different things. Like, everybody should check out the website at the very least, read the points of unity, go through them, make any suggested edits, basically do homework and think about how we would want to go about changing this, or what your personal thoughts are, since except for Shannon, all of us have been here, and Shannon, you're welcome to do it as well. Go through everything and make our thoughts or suggestions. What was your original question? I'm sorry, I've been going nonstop since 6 a.m. Literally, I haven't even eaten yet. So somebody just put something in Slack. That's what I was going to. She said it's going to be us voting would not be representative. And I think getting people in, like Aaron says, sounds like a target goal. So if we were going to take that approach of getting people in, my suggestion would be to send the initial email saying, hey, we're this Solidarity Network NJ, giving a sort of a description of what we are, what we did, and then about the conference. And then, as Aaron pointed out, which I didn't even think of, saying we're looking to possibly amend our points of unity and, or figure out some way to say it nice. We're looking for more people to get involved. Sorry, I got a phone call. Going forward, we would like your input. If you would like to join us, we would like your input. And at some point, no matter what, we're going to have to start taking votes. Right now, there are 5 of us on this call. There were 7 people on the call tonight. Is anyone else that was previously involved still involved? No one's reached out. I think Aisha was going to come to one meeting and then couldn't. So representative of, there's maybe 100 groups, I'm making up a number here, 100 groups in the state. If only 5 of us ever attend the meetings, we are representative of the network. So we can vote now, but we can always vote, as I think Mia pointed out, we can always vote to change whatever we decide later on. by someone proposing, okay, well, I love this, but I think this should be changed. I propose that we change it. Here's why. And then everybody gets a chance to look at it and we vote on it. So we should definitely get everyone set up with the Lumio so we can vote too. So we'll be doing a follow-up email no matter what with like all the links and everything like that. You know, we'll cooperatively get that together and make sure everybody has all the links, all the information.
And remember, Mark, I mean, when I joined this, there were a lot more of us. So.
Oh yeah, a lot more. Yeah.
So it might be my fault.
No, it's not your fault.
To answer your question, Yoshi, it's set up anonymously, so it doesn't capture emails. Because we want honest feedback. And just like the survey for the conference, it was anonymous. And yeah, if we want the form to have an email option, I can add that where it's not required though for them to put in their email. But yeah, that's why it was set up that way.
Yeah, that's just my suggestion because I want to be very real. Anonymous submission is definitely a way to go. However, that if we can capture people contact information, I tell you that we can contact them for participation in the meeting would go a long way, because otherwise they might not attend. I mean, that's just how it is. Like, people get so many communication. Like, we are at a astronomical crisis proportion where at my work, an open rate of like 1.2% is considered good.
Well,
Like,
ours is 46%.
we're a different kind of in industry. That is like very impressive, but I don't know like what that conversion rate is either.
I apologize, I have to go. I still do have a sick cat who needs my attention. So
Great kitty.
yeah, we've had a rough week.
Oh, I've had a rough year.
Hmm.
Just to follow up with I agree that the feedback form should definitely be anonymous, because you definitely will get much more honest feedback that way. But there can be something on there. Would you like to provide an email that we can contact you at? Something like that, so that if people want to get contacted, because some people might just want to be like, F you, it sucked, or F you, I hate this, you know, or whatever, and not want to contact us again. But it could be an option for them to contact us, like, and then we can collect their emails. And Shannon said, I think that'd be a good idea, Mia, having the email as an having an email as an option. It could not only let us hear genuine feedback from them, but pretty much exactly what I just said, and let us be able to reach out to them to discuss their feedback, and then allow us to discuss what changes to make going forward.
Okay, I'll get it added this weekend when I have time.
So what should we do right now? Like, what do you all think? Like, since there are only 5 of us, do we want to vote on just within our group of what we want to do for next week? I don't want to go in like circles and have the same exact conversation next week, because we've already talked about a lot of this before. So we want to take what we've talked about tonight and bring it into next week. So do we want to work on the points of unity, edit, change, or discard them? Or do we want to work on getting an email finalized that we're going to send out to groups and reach out to getting groups involved first? There's so many different ways we could take the next step.
The only issue I have with that is months ago, I put out a request for people to edit this email with me. and only one person participated in it. So I know it's very important how we're reaching out to people, but if people feel that way, they also need to show up to those meetings and also give feedback. It just can't be, okay, we need to work on the messaging and then no one ever says anything about it.
I do remember getting that email and reading it and planning to work on it, and I didn't. That was totally my fault for not doing that. And I will definitely go over it to the next few days for sure, like everything we have. I think I lost some things. I thought I had them saved, but I didn't, and I didn't know where anything was. So everything that was in the meeting tonight, I copied and emailed to myself, so I'll have it now. But yeah, we all need to, anybody who wants to have a say in any possible edits to the points of unity or to the outreach email or to how we vote needs to speak up and say it. We could do it here or via an email thread, because I'm going to send an email thread just to the people who came tonight to just follow up after this call. I'm literally like, my brain is like mush right now. So yeah, I think we should wait at least till next week before we start outreaching and have one more meeting. People can disagree, that's fine. We can vote on that, that's fine. But we should be looking at the information, looking at the list of groups, seeing who we know, putting your name on, you know, making sure you're on the website, reading through everything. At the very least, so everybody can be familiarized with things as they were or as they are before we do anything. Aaron says, I propose we start by picking a rough date, location, and start getting our next event going so we can start inviting people to help plan it. And Yoshi said, I know which groups I am reaching out to, but if you need me to reach out to more. Aaron says it's going to be hard to get people to come to meetings if there's nothing other than forming the group with no purpose. Honestly, I'm not really sure what the thing about what Yoshi said about reaching out to groups is like, at least 4 of us on this call tonight, 5 of us now are related to Central Jersey DSA. So all 5 of us don't need to reach out to that, to that particular group. So that's why there's sort of a list. So we don't have like a bunch of people reach out to the same group. And then once we've all reached out to the groups we know, then we're just going to start like, would you like to reach out to some more groups and just start putting names in? Well, we'll figure out a way to do that. So we make sure every group that's on the list gets reached out to and people can add groups.
Do you
Yes,
have
sir.
a link to that spreadsheet?
Let me get it
lost
for
it.
you right now.
Yeah, I had it somewhere too. I think I saved it in an email.
I'm reluctant to reach out to too many groups that I just don't know. Really, I'm most effective with.
That's fine.
I'm already in person, like kind of
Yeah,
personal basis.
I mean, I have no problem reaching out to groups I don't know. Just wanted to start it off really, right. That's my main concern is the first reach out to new groups that it's done as, as good as we can possibly do with what we have right now. So my first step is going to be reading that outreach email. I might do it tonight, but I probably will either way do it again tomorrow.
Me stretching off a lot of groups that are no longer active or have no visible presence is already like a very good step. I mean, like much of our outreach that we do in CNJ DSA itself, it's like when we had a phone bank for a school psychologist, it was literally just calling one after another and then getting messages like this number is no longer in service or some such thing like that, or people moving away.
So is my mic on?
Yeah.
So I'm gonna propose that I mean, even if people want to meet over the weekend before next week, but we really need to find out what our goal is. And we need to do that fast. And we definitely need an onboarding process to welcome all these people into Solidarity Network. So yeah, and I know like the social aspect of it is super important. But like I said earlier, we literally are in an identity crisis of what our group is. So we need to figure that out. So I think that's something we should discuss.
I agree with me on that. I think we need to figure out what we are. Like ASAP, like sooner than ASAP. Because
reject the whole thing that you're going to say, like we have to do this ASAP or some such thing as like we should have done this before yesterday. Like, don't impose this kind of like deadlines. We right now we're in a pretty good space where like we have now kind of put on the table what has been the obstacles, what have been the reservations that people have, or you know, let's use the strong word of like people pulling out. Let's just going forward now with these steps that we have set out. Do the things that we say we're going to do this weekend, and we're going to come back next week with some good next steps.
what does
This
everyone
is-
think about that? Oh, go ahead, Mia.
I feel like this is just gonna put us in the same position next week. Like we haven't had really a formal agenda for meetings in quite some time. And we need that. So someone needs to volunteer to do that. And we are not in a good place right now because when we were planning the conference, we had at least average 14, 15 people on those calls. And we are down to 5. And that does not show we're in a good place. We don't have the engagement. We don't have the strength in numbers or any of that. Because during the whole planning of the conference, it was about the conference. It was never about next steps. Even though we had those discussions at the conference and everyone said they didn't want to be a federation. So we took that feedback and we said we are going to be a network. So yeah, we need to definitely figure out who we are and what we want to do before we even get people involved. And like I said earlier, that can always change, but we need something to work on, at least have a foundation.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. But as Aaron said, and as you pointed out, the conference was about the conference. That there was that kind of engagement was because people were excited about this possibility. We're down to these numbers only because that we hadn't continued it. And like you said, we didn't have an agenda because I think there was the conference didn't provide clarity. It just provided this opportunity where groups of all sorts of ideological stripes came, you know, got to understand that there were other mutual aid groups, got to know the existence of some other forms of mutual aid. So like, what's next, right? Like, we have identified like some of these reservations that people had. So we have things to do this weekend. Let's do this weekend.
Okay, what exactly do you want us to do this weekend? Because for the longest time after the conference, I tried keeping us going by reaching out and reaching out and reaching out and reaching out. And I'm sorry to call you out, but you didn't respond to any of those reach outs. And I understand if this is important to you, and I respect that, but you can't just say, let's work on it this weekend. What exactly do you want us to work on?
Well, you said the editing of the email is important to bring people to give feedback on the points of unity. Is that not correct?
We are just trying, right now, we are trying to figure out for the next meeting what we're discussing.
Okay, I'm gonna go through everything that we talked about today. I'm gonna process it all again in the morning when I'm awake. And I'm gonna send out an email to everybody. I will volunteer to draft an initial agenda. And if anyone would like something on the agenda or thinks we should not have something on an agenda, get in touch with me. We could sort of bounce around the agenda, or I'll just do it like however. And I'll try to I'll make a formal agenda for next week, covering the things that we're talking about tonight, and we need to finalize them next week. So things like the email, the points of unity, outreach to groups. We're kind of going back and forth, and I don't want to spend like all night going in circles back and forth on what to prioritize. So my suggestion is that everyone reads everything, and I'm going to send an email by tomorrow morning, possibly tonight, to the people on this call, and give everyone a chance to read through everything and give your feedback. And at next meeting, we need to make some decisions. The things we talked about tonight, we need to make like a final decision, knowing that any decisions we make as we get more people involved in the group can be changed. Also, if there's other people you know that might want to get interested, have them be here next week. You know, people you know personally or people that were already involved with the conference, you know, let them know. Send them personally an email. Hey, we're still going with the conference. You want to get back involved? So we can try to increase our numbers, because like Mia said, you know, some of us, especially Mia, kept working on it, and I kept replying to emails. But if we reach out to 1,000 people and it's still the 5 of us next week, or 8 and 7 of us that were on this call tonight, we have to make the decisions with just the 7 of us. We can't assume that more people are going to come just because we asked them to. And like what Mia said, we need to have a structure. Some people are going to want to come and be part of that part of building the structure, whereas other people might want the structure already there. We have to prepare for both eventualities. So I think we should look at everything this weekend, read through everything this weekend, communicate via email, get ourselves set up, and be ready next week to spend like, what I did with the one draft agenda I did is I broke it into like 3 categories: past, present, and future. It was the only agenda that I wrote up for the post-conference one. So next week, I'll try to break it up into like 15-minute increments. Okay, here's what we talked about last week. Here's what we know we need to do. What is our decision going to be? And take a vote at the meeting on how to proceed, or do it with whoever's involved in, well, I keep forgetting the name of it. I know it starts with an L.
Lumio. If you
Lumio.
want to propose something, make a Lumio account and propose it.
I have to figure out how to do all that. So I will try to get that done over the next day or two as well. So we can have this all set up for next week. So, but next week we need to, I don't know if we should necessarily vote on anything tonight, because it's a first meeting back, like really back. But I think next week we should be ready to, like at the end of next week's meeting, have stuff out there to vote on. And by the following meeting, have the decisions made. So like in 2 weeks, we know who we are, what we're doing, where we're going, what it is, and how we're moving forward. And some new people may be involved. And then we can, once we have a basic structure and the people who were involved get back involved that want to, or maybe even some new people, then we can really branch out and blow it up. I don't think we're going to make any major decisions. It's 9:55 at night. I don't think any major decisions are going to be made right now. If somebody wants to do a Lumio proposal to vote on, but right now it's only going to be make sure that all 8 people on the call tonight have the Lumio account, and I'll put that in the email I send out. And if somebody wants to start, we could start right away. Start putting proposals on Lumio and vote on them. Right now, one thing I want to ask before we start voting, since right now we have 8 people involved as of tonight's meeting, what do we want to do as quorum for passing, failing? Is it just 50%? Some groups do, like you have to have a certain percentage of the people vote. There's so many differences with that, which didn't even come up before, is how do we say a vote passes or not? Is it just above 50% it passes, below 50% it doesn't? No matter how many people vote, given a based on, say, like a week timeline or whatever we decide. Because
I
if we're
think-
going to vote, go ahead.
I think 50% or greater is a good way to start.
50%, we'd have to do a revote, but 50.01, I think, yeah, we might as well at this point. And we're going to just go with 50% of 8. So if 4 people vote yay, 4 people vote no, then we're at a stalemate. We got to redo it. But if 5 people vote yes, it's passed. And if next week there's 12 people on the call, then the numbers change. The numbers will change every week based on who's involved. And if people leave, I'm starting a new email thread. So if people come in, they come in. If people leave, I'll keep track of that this time as people, like I didn't have access to that original email list, so I couldn't remove people. But if I have access to the email list, I can do that because I check it constantly. Okay, look, anything else anybody wants to say? Or do, or suggest?
We need to discuss when the next meeting is, if it's definitely Thursday. Can we make it easy and say we're keeping it Thursdays for now?
I thought we already did.
I second that motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That's 2, 3. Aye. 4. How many did we
Motion
just
to-
vote then?
Motion to
Um,
adjourn this meeting.
Hold on, did that pass? Okay, everyone, thank you for coming. And I know this meeting was chaotic, but I think we got a lot done, even if it doesn't look like it. And just expect at least 1 email or more from me over the next few days. Especially
Sorry,
if
Mark,
somebody might ask you for things.
Yeah,
Thanks so
sorry,
much
Mark,
for
I've been
coming,
going-
everybody. And in solidarity, good night.
Yeah, sorry, Mark. I've been going since 5:45.
Yeah, you got me beat by 15 minutes. Okay, good night, everybody.
Good night.